Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Alabama heading on the road to play Tennessee in a battle of two teams, Dill, where we've seen national championship caliber play from both of these teams. At points in the season, we've made the argument that they're some of the best teams in the country. Now, over the last 2 weeks, both of these teams dropping losses that are just extremely frustrating. But I think more importantly, you didn't really see the rebound from either of these programs on Saturday. And yes, both Alabama and Tennessee won those football games, but it certainly wasn't their best football that we saw on Saturday. I feel like this game comes down to what team plays their best football on Saturday afternoon, because again, these are two really good teams that you just want to see a little bit more consistency from. Really fired up to get into this one. I got a couple of really, I think, intriguing matchups that you're going to see in this football game. Now, before you get into it, and as always, I think most importantly, Alabama fans, Tennessee fans, just college football fans that are going to be dialed in on this one, let it fly in the comment section. So many different ways you can view this football game, especially with some of the inconsistencies you've seen from both of these programs. So let it fly in the comment section, Dill. I'm going to give you the T-box, and where I would like to start with this matchup is this Tennessee offense, which you've really seen some massive question marks with the last 2 weeks, going up against an Alabama defense where you've seen equally question marks for this Alabama defense. How do you see this matchup playing out Saturday afternoon here?
I'm not going to lie. I think it 100% starts with Nico Iamaleava. And we've kind of talked a lot about what Tennessee has around him and what they can do. I mean, at some point, your quarterback needs to make some things happen. In the past 2 weeks, things haven't been perfect. They've had way too many penalties. They've had too many negative plays, and they haven't stayed on schedule like they were able to for the first handful of weeks. And he hasn't really risen to the task, if you will. They've had guys open on the field. He's missed them. They've turned the ball over way too much, I think. I mean, you need to see him be able to attack this Alabama secondary because I still think that's where Alabama's kind of weak.
By far the biggest matchup here. Like, can Tennessee hit the explosive plays in the passing attack against an Alabama secondary that, again, is very talented, but it's young and inexperienced? And, like, Josh Heupel is going to give Nico some of these throws to change the football game. Now it comes down to Nico making these throws. And, Dale, you look at, I think, the biggest storyline that we've seen with this Tennessee offense where going into the month of October, this was one of the best offenses statistically that we've seen in the country. What went wrong the last two games for Tennessee on offense? I think it's twofold. One, not running the football as effectively as we saw in the month of September. This is a Tennessee rushing attack that is absolute dynamite. It still is a very good rushing attack, but I think the question mark was when this Tennessee offense can't just run all over the opposing defense, can Nico make enough of these throws to continue that dominance on offense? In the last 2 weeks, you really haven't seen that. So one, I wouldn't say struggles in the rushing attack because they're still running the football.
I would kind of say it's not struggling as much as they're not staying on schedule because A, penalties, and B, negative plays. It's like those two things have combined. Like Tennessee, when they get chances to start road grading on you and running the ball, I think they played well. But their offensive line struggled mightily in pass protection. They're taking penalties, and Nico's holding onto the ball and taking sacks. So when you do those type of things, it's hard to kind of establish the run game like they were doing earlier when they weren't giving up negative plays and they were just wearing on teams.
Yeah, it is hard to run the football when you're behind the chains. I think, secondly, this is a Tennessee offense, specifically the passing attack, that is predicated on pushing the ball down the field. And when the explosive plays are there, you got to hit them. And you look back at that Tennessee offense in 2022 under Hendon Hooker, what made it so special? When Hendon Hooker had the throws, he wasn't missing them. For Nico, you take a look at the last 2 weeks against Florida, 1 of 6 on throws 20-plus yards down the field. Against Arkansas, 1 of 4 on throws 20-plus yards down the field. When they've had these throws, and these throws have been there, Tennessee fans would be the first ones to admit it, and Nico's just not making them. And when you don't make those throws, it's really hard to run a consistent offense. So that's what, in my mind,
I think Alabama will probably give you 1 or 2 or 3 of those.
yes,
they gave it,
100%.
they gave South Carolina. Vanderbilt didn't necessarily hit big plays down the field, but they hit a couple big plays. But they were able to hit their plays in 3rd and 9, 3rd and 8, those type of plays. When they got man coverage, they were able to exploit Alabama in that situation. Nico needs to be able to do that because I don't think they're just going to be able to run the ball right down Alabama's throat. I still think that's very tough front seven. Tim Smith, Tim Keenan, that's a really, really tough interior defensive line who I don't think it's not conducive just running power every play like felt like Tennessee was doing. So, again, I don't want to oversimplify this game, but kind of at the end of the day, it is what it is. Nico needs to have a game where he's clean, and when he has opportunities to hit him, they gotta hit him.
Zero doubt in my mind, like Josh Heupel will chef up, for lack of better terms, chef up some plays. Then Nico has a chance to kind of go out and win the football game. Make those throws, you win this football game. Now it comes down to Nico making them. And if you're Alabama on defense, I don't think the game plan is that complicated. Like, try to deal with this Tennessee rushing attack, which Alabama's been pretty solid against the run. And you said it best. Like, that front seven's got some dudes. And then just don't give up the big play. That's probably the bigger concern for Alabama. Like, this has been a secondary that you've seen some explosives given up. It's a young secondary. There's some new faces in there. That's what it comes down to. Can you stop the run? Can you not let Tennessee hit the big play?
Yeah, I think one key for Alabama is they need their edge rushers come to play. I think that's been a problem, frankly, for me. I don't think they're playing great there. I think Quandarius Robinson's played really, really well, and he's been able to generate some pressure. They need one of the other guys, whether it's Cott, whether it's Rousseau, someone like that, to step up and make some things happen as well, because he's been doing his job. And I look, Tennessee, I don't think these tackles are playing good in pass pro. As much as I love what they're doing on the ground and hammering on teams, they gave up a lot of pressure from the Florida defensive front that I don't think is particularly great. So I'm looking at these defensive ends. Can they, on the edge, challenge Zillian's Hurd in these other tackles to make things happen? Because these last 2 weeks, they really haven't, and they've given them a lot of pressure.
I think you left out arguably the best pass for LT Overton. I think has been phenomenal for Alabama as well. And I thought you saw Alabama get after South Carolina.
Well,
I don't know how much that means. Like South Carolina's offensive line might be the worst in the SEC. So I'm kind of with you. Like, can this pass rush show up against what I think still is a very good offensive line for Tennessee that has struggled a little bit in pass protection? Now you flip the side and say Tennessee's defense, I think, is so good. And Pilley being healthy is a massive storyline in this football game. Obviously questionable leaving that game with the injury against Florida. Dale, if you are Tennessee, I think it starts with rushing the passer. Alabama in pass protection has been a roller coaster. Thought they looked really dang good against Georgia, not so good against Vanderbilt, not so good against South Carolina. And you go back and watch the game and say it's not Alabama losing one-on-one matchups in pass protection. It's blown assignments. It's both, whether it's Caden Proctor or Elijah Pritchett, just not picking up edge defenders. The communication on the offensive line has kind of been a disaster. And if you're Alabama, Tennessee has arguably the best pass rush that you see in the SEC. What really gave Alabama some problems against South Carolina is not only kind of penalties, but also it's kind of similar story here. Like, Alabama got behind the chains. They couldn't lean on the run as much as they wanted to at certain points. Can Tennessee get those negative plays? And there's kind of a nuance to that conversation, though, because you want to get after Jalen Milroe, but you also want to try to keep him in the pocket. That's probably the biggest storyline when you're looking at this Tennessee defense that has a legit front seven going up against an Alabama offensive line that has, again, they're going on the road into one of the hardest environments to win a football game, really struggling with the communication on the offensive line here.
But I think you turn the heat up. I think that's been the only recipe to stopping Alabama. You look, Georgia in the first half of that game played a little bit passive.
Yep.
Alabama absolutely took it to them. I feel like they did get a little aggressive in the second half, had a little bit more success. You look, South Carolina was pretty aggressive. I thought they were doing a good job getting their defensive ends, rushing upfield hard, making negative plays. And that really has been the only thing that stopped Alabama, because you look, this Alabama offense is about as complete as you could want, because Jalen Milroe is now starting to really be effective in that short intermediate pass game. They can obviously hit the ball downfield with Ryan Williams. So it's a really complete offense. I think, again, you're going to set it. Jalen Milroe still has had that propensity to take a negative play here or there, especially in that South Carolina game. You saw some of those old tendencies revert back. So I think if they can really heat him up and play aggressive, that has been the recipe to stopping Jalen Milroe. Because otherwise, if you play kind of passive, he's just too good and he's picking teams apart.
And I for like South Carolina, and what I think would Tennessee want to try to replicate is like mugging the defensive line, like simulating pressure, giving a lot of different looks, trying to confuse this Alabama offensive line. I don't necessarily need you to bring 5 and 6 on blitz packages, but can you show pressure? Can you maybe drop out of it? But can you confuse this Alabama offensive line in terms of the communication, especially when you're playing in an environment like it's going to be Saturday afternoon in Knoxville,
I mean,
Tennessee.
I still think Tennessee's got to be a little bit more disciplined off of play action fakes and guys leaking out into the flats, because I think you saw Arkansas beat them up a little bit with that. And you
Florida did
saw
too.
Florida really
Yeah.
kind of beat them up with that.
Yeah.
So, again, those type of things, are they going to be a little bit more disciplined? Because they are flying around. I like the aggressive intensity they're playing with, and I think that's what you need to play Alabama with. But they are probably giving up too much easy stuff underneath and in through those flats. So
I
that's
will
another
say there's not many defenses that can match the team speed that Alabama has. I do think Tennessee's one of them. Like, this Tennessee team flies around the football field, and when they're playing their best football, it is a smothering defense to go up against.
It'll be a fun matchup is Jermod McCoy versus Ryan Williams, because so far you really haven't seen any cornerback go one-on-one and just deal with him in man coverage. Obviously, Tennessee's probably going to play a fair amount of that. Jermod McCoy's been really good. I think you looked at Arkansas game, they hit a couple plays on him, but I mean, those were perfect throws, really good catches by Armstrong. I thought he was really good against Florida, frankly. That's going to be a really fun matchup, because I think that's been something that's allowed Tennessee to take that next step, is Jermod McCoy can kind of shut down one of your top wide receivers. And Ryan Williams, I mean, that guy is like, we like talk about Jeremiah Smith. Ryan Williams.
Yeah, and South Carolina did a pretty good job taking him out of the football game, and Alabama had to use and lean on some other pass catchers, which they're able to do. Like, there's a lot of the national media that likes to dunk on Alabama and say it's a one-trick pony. There are they got some good tight ends. Their running backs catch the ball well out of the backfield. They have other guys like Jeremy Bernard. They have other weapons to use, and you saw them go to it against South Carolina. Dill, let's get into the pick here. Alabama coming in. This is essentially a pick 'em game. I'll give you the T-box first. Who you rocking with? Alabama, Tennessee.
I'll take it, Alabama. I'm so nervous about what Nico's look like. And again, I was willing to forgive it for that Arkansas game. And okay, that's fine. Like, you play a bad game, it is what it is. But then you go back, there's just no rhythm with that downfield passing game. And they have these. These really aren't hard throws at the end of the day. I mean, you got guys running with 5 yards of separation, and you're way overshooting them, and they're not even close. I think I've seen quarterbacks go through that, and you think, oh, they'll just get their timing. But when you're 1 for 9 on those type of throws, and again, they're kind of there, I'm getting really concerned. And frankly, that's been the formula for hurting Alabama. They're not an easy team to run the ball on, but their secondary has had some problems. And if they're not going to take advantage of those busts, they aren't going to win this game, I don't think.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you for going with the quarterback that's played better. And although Jalen Milroe didn't have his best game against South Carolina, this kid's been very, very good to start the 20. Even against Vanderbilt, Jalen Milroe was phenomenal. They offense averaged 9 yards per play. I'm going to go Tennessee for a couple of different reasons, but I think most notably, I really worry. One, I think they have the team speed to deal with Alabama, which has been a problem. Like, when you don't have linebackers and safeties that can just deal with Jalen Milroe in space, that's a problem. They'd like to go to that quarterback sweep, you might call it, when they get Jalen Milroe out to the perimeter. Tennessee's got the speed at linebacker to make some of those plays. But I think most importantly, I look at this Alabama offensive line. So you're going on the road against what might be the best pass rush in the country with communication problems. I think Tennessee's going to be able to create a lot of negative plays and give Alabama some of the struggles that you saw this offense have against South Carolina. I'm with you. Like, I don't love betting Tennessee the way Nico has played the last couple of weeks, but I do think Josh Heupel, I guess what it comes down to is I just trust the Tennessee defense the most on the football field. I'm going to go Tennessee at home here. You're going Bama. Going to be a phenomenal football game. Let it fly in the comment section. Again, appreciate all the support y'all have shown the fellas. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.